So you read your books, you finish your books, it was a good read. But you're still the same person who can now walk up to people and tell them, hey, I've read XYZ book. So now you can look cool in front of people. But I feel like that's the wrong way to read books. If you're someone who reads books to gain knowledge from it, kudos to you, right? If you're someone who reads books, fictional books, etc., to tell people that you read books, or to have a bookshelf full of books, fuck you. So the pursuit of knowledge is pretty important. That's how the entirety of humanity was built, right? Knowledge is based on experiences. That's why I feel like fictional books, they're just not worth it. So in my opinion, knowledge should serve you, right? And the knowledge can only serve you if you can firstly retain that knowledge, and then you can use that knowledge in your day-to-day life. So that's how you're going to make use of that knowledge to better your life, right? So I think that's the core basis of self-improvement. So I follow one very important rule every time I read a book. I'm not an avid reader, but I've started reading yet again. The rule that I follow is read a book only once, or at least try to. Now a lot of people will say, oh no, you know what, that's simply bullshit. You can't read a book just once. And that's where they forget the second line, where I say, or at least try to, right? So what I mean when I say read a book at least once, or at least try to, is that I'm trying to instill this idea that knowledge is important and knowledge is crucial, or the knowledge that a book is providing to you is very crucial because you only get to read it once. What this does is it trains me mentally to think highly of that book, to kind of like put that book on a pedestal, right? A lot of people, like the knowledge they have in these books, the knowledge they have in their smartphone, they do not respect it. So I feel like this is a way to respect books, this is a way to respect knowledge, and you can only get to read that book once, right? So now what you do? Well, you're not just going to read that book, right? Reading a book does not mean you're actively retaining that knowledge and you're going to use that knowledge. So what I like to do is, whenever I'm reading a book, I keep this copy right next to me, and these are all the copies from my college I dropped out. So now I'm making use of the copies from my college to actually study necessary things that are going to help me make my life better. So I'm currently reading the book called The Art of Persuasion, Winning Without Intimidation. I write everything down. Whatever I deem important, I write it down. First things first about using this rule is you're not just going to respect the book, right? And you're actually going to sit there and study about the book because you know mentally that you can only read a book once, right? So now what you do is you sit there and write down the summary of whatever you deem important in that book, right? A lot of books, when they're trying to sell you an idea, they lead you down this entire experience. They lead you down this deep explanation of, how the writer came up with this certain stuff, or why this idea works, or who it has worked for in history. They're going to sell you some stories, etc., right? And I feel like once you've read a book, there is no point in going back and, studying about why that idea works, or, what led the writer to think about this idea and who it has worked for in history. That is simply not necessary. So once you read a book, you're not just going to read a book, right? You're going to write all the important stuffs about that book in a copy. And once you've done that, you're going to revisit your summary instead of the book. So whatever you deem important, you're going to write it down and you're going to revisit it again and again, right? So that's the point. And once you've done that, you're going to save a lot of time. So before all this, I used to think, the best way to read a book is to not read a book. Instead, go online, go to YouTube, go to some website and get the summary of that book. And one major flaw with that idea was that you're going to rely on someone else for your information. And it's like going outside of a gold mine that is free for all, and instead just scraping up gold nuggets, right? When you can go inside and you can mine for yourself. So read a book once, or at least try to. So this way, you're not just going to respect that book first, you're going to save a lot of time. And third things third, you're actually going to study. A lot of people, they study books to doze off at night. And I feel like that is not a great way to study. You study, you forget, you go back, you read that same book again. And now this entire cycle repeats. I think I would call this the reading cycle of doom, I guess. Now, the next thing that I would also like to share is only read books that you deem are important. Don't read a book just because someone told you it's good. All right, go ahead, search up a book, right? If it has some sort of content that you deem is important to improving your life, then you should study that book for sure. But don't read each and every book, right? So what happens when you're going to read each and every book is that your mental capacity is pretty limited. If you're going to read each and every book, you're going to have this overload of information that you're not going to use, that you'll just have in your brain, that you'll sometimes remember, and it's going to be a mess. So instead, only read the books that you deem are important. Go ahead, look up a book, right, and have a very selective range of books. So yeah, reading any and every book will fill up the space, fill the room which was otherwise reserved for your curiosity or reserved for the things that you would deem important in your life currently. So yeah, it's pretty important to have a very selective range of books, and if you're reading, only read a book once, or at least try to. So yeah, that's the thing. And now if you want this video in text form, I do have a blog published. All my blogs, at least most of them, come before my videos. So you can tune into my blog, zamkai.com/blog, and yeah, you can find it there. If not, you've watched this video. The content will be a little bit different, and there are some contents I'll publish on my blog that I'll not publish on the videos. So yeah, go ahead, read my blogs as well. You know, they're not very long, they're not as elaborate as videos. So yeah, if you're someone who enjoys reading, go visit my blog and read a book once, or at least try to. ZamG out.